The Newcomers have been purchased by the providers for 2,000 quatlus. Spock leads the Enterprise on a hunch, and Captain Kirk says you can call kissing someone helping them. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton and Walter Koenig.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 16, Gamesters of Triskellion. Written by Margaret Arman, directed by Gene Nelson. This was January 5th, 1968. Where were you, and how are you guys doing today?
All right.
Yeah.
Doing okay.
Walter, this was a fun one because you got to be part of the away mission. A lot of times you get stuck on the ship while Kirk goes and saves the day with Spock and Bones or something like that. But I was happy to see that you and Uhura were in this away mission. That was a very different kind of blend. You know, it's usually Kirk and Spock and Bones or some kind of thing like that. But I was like, whoa, this is great. We got some Chekhov and Uhura as part of the A story. Can you tell us one of the many things you remember about this episode? Like when you read the script or when you first showed up, did you feel like, all right, this is going to be a fun one? If you can remember almost 60 years back.
Go ahead.
No, I'm asking you, what can you remember?
Sirach?
Me? I don't remember anything. I wasn't there. I can swear I wasn't there. But I did love this episode, though. You know, I thought it had some really good stuff in it. Actually, I had the pleasure of watching it twice. But yeah, I kind of agree with Ryan and his opening question, which is, you know, it seems like you got to be let in on the action when you got put on the away team in this episode. And, you know, when you get a script and you have more to do in it and you're basically heavily featured, you know, does that, you know, what kind of preparation goes into it for you?
Well, you know, I was pretty new to the show still at that point, and I generally viewed every episode in pretty much the same way at that time, and that's, boy, I get to work this week, and I actually have a scene or two where I can emote a little. So I was pleased. I was pleased to be involved. This is all this is. I'm really having trouble with one word. I can't think of the bloody word.
That happened to me earlier.
What I want to say is, watching it again, I had a somewhat different attitude about it. It was kind of a cynical attitude. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, this very attractive lady in this very skimpy silver outfit, our captain with his shirt off half the time. What was the purpose of this episode? Was it to deliver a message about the world, about the universe, about how we interact with each other, or really was it about selling Star Trek and what makes it appealing? And I think this was an episode that really was designed to appeal to people under 30, or people who appreciated this beautiful young lady's attractive body and our beautiful Captain Kirk's attractive body. That's what it felt like to me as I watched it a second time. It was really designed to draw the audience. Primarily, whatever message it was evoking was secondary to the point that perhaps Star Trek, the word had gotten out that we were in trouble, that we needed a bigger audience, and this show was designed to do that. That's my cynical expression of how I felt about this.
You know, that's really interesting that you say that, Mr. Walter Koenig, because our good pal Jason M. Oken, who may not make it to the free-for-all, he actually messaged a similar thing where he said, I think Gamesters is the episode during which there was word on the set that Star Trek was being canceled. The mood was somber for a few days until the show was picked up for additional episodes that season. So maybe there's some kind of connection there. But do you remember how you felt in those days, 57 years ago? Do you remember anything from being on set? Do you remember if the mood was somber or if it was fun or getting along with the cast?
No, I was the new guy in the show, and as I've said before, I did not have a contract. So I could be working the following week or I could not be. So when they said you're working next week, oh, that's great. And you've got a scene that's kind of cute with your drill for all.
A yellow lady.
Yeah. And Angelique, Patty John is very attractive. And I am definitely heterosexual, so I could appreciate that.
You noticed.
I was not critical at the time about the story. I was just pleased. I was just pleased to be working on another episode. That was my main focus was. I'm working. Mm-hmm. They're calling me back. There was a couple of moments that I looked at myself on the screen and said, what am I thinking? It doesn't look like I'm thinking anything. I'm just sitting there. It was like they caught me off guard or something. I was disappointed in the fact that I did not feel when I was watching that, I did not feel involved. I was in my cage, in my jail, and I was just kind of staring out. So I take exception at my own performance regarding that.
I do that all the time, Walter. I know exactly what you feel, but
take exception at his performance.
No, not his.
I'm just kidding.
My own performances. Yeah, I mean, you're always critical of things, and you're saying, "Well, I could have done that better," or I don't like that facial expression. It doesn't match the tone of the scene. There's moments when I will do that about my own performances. So I'm super critical. That's actually why I prefer not to watch myself. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I wanted to ask you about the choreography in this because this had a lot of fight scenes, and I guess there was a lot of that. Was there a lot of time put into the choreography for this episode for the fight scenes?
Well, it's curious you mentioned that. I actually have a note that I thought the choreography was pretty good. Generally, it's not, I've seen a lot of feature films, particularly when the choreography is really slam bam and when they're fighting and you really can really feel that it's going on. This was better than I've seen on Star Trek in the past. The fighting seemed more convincing. So I took notice and I'm pleased about that.
Yeah, you actually got a piece of action. You got to actually fight a little bit with that guy Klug. I was watching, I got all excited. I was like, whoa, Walter's actually getting to be part of the battle scene. Everybody had like a fight partner and you got the 8-footer. I don't know why they gave you the guy that's 8
I was
feet
like,
tall.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why is Walter taking on the biggest guy? Kirk, come over here and take on the big guy.
Yeah, Shatner's like, I'll take on blonde Elvis over here. You take the 8-foot Sasquatch.
Yeah, but I noticed that as well. But I thought the choreography, to your point, though, was also great. I thought it was better than what we usually see. they had the parameters where you couldn't step on the yellow or the blue, and so there was footwork involved with that. And to enhance it, I thought the director, who in this case was Gene Nelson,
Who
maybe
was a dancer?
he was a gent.
He was a dancer, yeah. Gene Nelson, before he became a director, was a stage dancer and had important stage roles as a dancer.
Well, that kind of makes sense because I thought the choreography was also filmed well. It was a matter of the placement of the camera. It was showing certain things like Kirk unloosening his his ties behind his back and certain close up shots in those moments that accentuated the fight. It made it more believable. They cut to the right moments. The editing was right on that. It felt fluid. So I did like the choreography in the fight scenes. But Walter, when you were doing this episode, what did you, what were you thinking this episode was about? Because you mentioned in the beginning this kind of didn't have that much direction, and it felt like it was a little bit all over the place. Like, well, what is the story about? For you, was it just I'm captive and I have to deal with this woman that wants to be with me?
You guys have got to forgive me. I don't hear well, so a lot of the dialogue when I was listening this time, I couldn't absorb it. I couldn't figure it out. But what was most prominent to me, and now I'm reiterating, is the appeal. This episode was an appeal to a specific segment of our audience, young people whose hormones were still active, young women with Mr. Shatner's bare chest, and all sorts of young men and perhaps older men who found Angelique Petitjean to be an attractive woman who was rather skimpily clad.
She definitely was. And there are a lot of these memes, these graphics that we were talking about before we hit record, that it shows Kirk looking at her and saying, suddenly I'm in the mood for baked potatoes. So that was because of her outfit.
Yeah, thank you.
I've been told that Angelique was a stripper. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told.
Now, you said you knew and worked with, who was it? Joseph Ruskin before this?
Yeah.
We did a play called The Deputy. Now, the curious thing was there was all men. At least 7 of the 11 or 12 men in the play all did Star Trek episodes.
Wow.
Yeah. Bill Wintersall and a whole slew of people. The only one who didn't was Alan Napier, who played the butler on Batman. He played Alfred on Batman. Yeah. Everybody, and it was a play about the Pope Pius during the Second World War, how he sort of ignored what was happening in Germany, and with not only the Jews but the Gypsies, homosexuals. He sort of just made believe it wasn't there. And the play was about that. It was about a priest who tries to get him involved, get the Pope involved. It was played by Robert Brown, who did a guest starring role on Star Trek, and he played the lead in this play. As I say, there were several other actors. But that all happened later, so it was interesting, and it was very successful. We went beyond our run. We ran several weeks beyond our run, and had a very, very enthusiastic crowd at the time.
Wow. How do you? Can you tell us about Joe Ruskin? What he was like as a person?
Well, one thing, Joe Ruskin's first wife was married to my agent
Oh,
before he was married to Joe, I think, or maybe it was the other way around. He was a little bit on the elitist side, a little bit distant. That's okay, you know. Not everybody has to be a hail fellow, well met. He was a good actor. He was a serious actor. Did considerable amount of work back in the 60s and perhaps the 70s, I'm not sure. So, yeah, and that was a curious role he played. Again, it's one that in retrospect I question. It was a little bit on the comic book side, it seemed to me, you know, with the blue lights in the eyes and all of that. Kind of evil incarnate as it was written and performed.
really? He didn't come off very evil to me. He came off just very matter of fact. You know, like, this is how it works. This is what I do. Here are the rules. Nothing like, he didn't seem like he had these negative motivations or sinister thoughts or feelings. He just seemed uncaring and unmoved. If, you know, indifferent is the way I kind of read it.
That's interesting. And how long have you been in therapy?
Like 15 minutes, I feel like. No, but did you? Yeah, he didn't come off like. I mean, maybe I read it wrong. Was it written that way in the script?
Each his own. I found them that way, but then I found the personality, you know, a bit distant. So perhaps that it influenced my interpretation of his performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's elements of both in his character. I mean, he was robotic in some ways, but what he was asking people to do was, you know, heartless, and so he didn't have any empathy. I wanted to talk about Nichelle Nichols. I thought she looked super beautiful in this episode, as she always does, but particularly so. There was a moment in the beginning, though, that it bothered me. It was a nitpick of mine, and I watched it twice, and it bothered me both times. And that is when you guys first get disappeared from the you know, Enterprise, and you land right there in the center of this planet. Everybody is lying down on the floor. You wake up, you know, lying on the floor, and Shatner gets up, you get up, and Uhura's still laying there. And I've just felt like somebody should go help her up. You know?
Check on her.
Or just help her up, at least. Just I felt like the gentleman thing to do is, if I see some woman lying on the floor, I'm going to ask her, does she, you know, reach my hand out and help her up. That's...
Guys, I'll be back in just a minute. I got somebody at the door. I'll be back.
Yeah. So yeah, that bothered me a little bit. I don't know if you saw that, Ryan, but I'm watching it. I'm thinking, how come nobody's helping Uhura get up?
Yeah, you know? Especially because, look, it's somebody on your team. It's part of your crew. You look, person 1 gets up, person 2 gets up. Hey, we should check on person 3, make sure everything's cool there. See if they need help, check on them. Maybe they're, you know, injured, maybe they're knocked out, maybe they're possessed by something. But yeah, that was a little peculiar. I did like that everybody got a part, though. Like, obviously Kirk's part was much bigger at the time. Like, he's the main character. Yeah, I think she may have. But you know, he was clearly the main character, and he was the main character on the away mission. But still, Uhura and Chekhov got their own screen time. They each got their own drill thrall, which Kirk probably took the wrong way too. And so it was nice that they weren't just like tied up in a corner while Kirk's doing all the things that are going on, but it was actually like all 3 of them had a character that was stuck to them or assigned to them. Like, Walter got the yellow lady. I just kept calling her the yellow lady, but then I found out later her name was
Moon.
Yeah. Where is it? Yeah. Tamoon, right. And the baked potato lady was Shauna, and the super tall guy was Klug.
Yeah.
I didn't find out what there was one there was also the guy called Blonde Elvis. I don't think
I noticed you know that.
I don't think I caught his name though. Blonde Elvis.
Back.
It might have been Lars. I'm looking at the IMDb, and I think
It was Lars.
Must have been Lars. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he had Lars. But yeah, and Lars was walking around carrying a net, and I was thinking, who brings a net to a fight? Like
old Roman style, right?
Yeah. Like if I'm going to show up, there's like a sword, there's a spear, there's an axe.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, let me get that net.
Yep. Maybe even two.
Like that's just not going to be the weapon of choice for me. Swinging. Now, if we're catching chicken or something, I don't know, or game fish, the net'll work.
But at the same time, he also needed so much dental work that I was focused on that rather than the net.
Good old Klug. Hey, Walter, here was something that I noticed. One of your lines, when you were upset about something, I believe Kirk said something, and then you were also upset. You said, Cossacks. Do you remember that line? Yeah, Cossacks.
What was I talking about?
It was something that was going on when they were going to like sacrifice a guy, and then Kirk says like, damn it, or darn it, and you say Cossacks, like out of anger. Yeah,
I didn't remember that either.
Okay, well, I'll have to look it up, but I think Cossacks is a group of people back in the day in old Russian history. Maybe they were enemies, or maybe, but you were exclaiming it as a sort of insult or derogatorily. So let me check it out. But I think that's what I remember it being. It says
it was definitely an insult. Yeah.
Cossacks were historical semi-nomadic warrior communities of primarily Slavic and multi-ethnic origins, blah, 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 blah. So there must have been it must have been that some kind of rivalry with, say Northern Russians and the Cossacks, because I think they kind of split off into two and ended up in like Bulgaria, Romania.
Part of the aggressiveness of the Russians against the Jews. The Cossacks were on horseback, and they went after the Jews. That was, at least that is the derogatory meaning that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, historical lesson.
Pogroms.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of old, like for example, what's the word I'm looking for? Not barbarian, but there's another word like that, where really, throughout history, all it means is these other guys, but they use it as it kind of developed into an insult, whether it be in old Roman days or something like that. Somebody in the live chat helped me out. There's an
How do you spell that, Cossacks? Is it with a K or
Cossacks?
Yeah, with the capital C.
Yeah, with the Baltic Sea.
So I have an anecdote, very brief, but that's what I'm here for. Brief
right?
Yeah.
I got to be quite friendly with Angelique, and I don't mean quote quite friendly. I just mean friendly. And we had made plans to have lunch together at the cafeteria. And she said, knock on my door. So I did. And she was wearing a sheet. And that was all she was wearing, was a sheet. And she held up and it shook me up. It just totally shook me up. I was trembling.
Who was this?
The girl from this episode.
Told me to sit down,
The
and
baked
she would.
potato girl?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
I never saw anything other than the sheet, but I had a trouble walking. My hormones were raging. They were just raging.
Her name was Angelique Pettyjohn, and she played Shauna, right?
Yeah.
And that was the only Star Trek episode she did. I thought she did just fine for somebody with a green wig on. It cannot be easy to wear a big green wig and saran wrap or aluminum foil all over you. Like, I was actually really impressed because that's not comfortable. That's not easy. You constantly have to be careful what's going on and what you're doing and all that. So I was actually really impressed by her. Seems like she was at the very least friendly, right?
Yeah, she was very friendly. Yeah. And, the relationship, the character relationship she had with Captain Kirk, I thought was convincing. I bought it. Yeah, it was an interesting choice. I don't know how they found her because, as I said, I had heard that she was a stripper. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I thought she did a fantastic job in this episode because I also did believe her relationship with Kirk. I also believe that she was able to portray the fact that she didn't know anything about human or Earth cultures or love, and I thought she was convincing at portraying that she was not aware of these kinds of things, and so I bought that.
Except, it's interesting. I actually wrote a note, Sirach, when she says, "What is beautiful?" She knows all these other words. How come she doesn't know what beautiful is? I didn't quite get that.
Well, because they don't teach them that. They're basically slaves and they're just fighters, and they don't know what stars are or beauty or probably books or YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I just thought she did a good job because usually you don't have the combination of good looks and acting abilities. It's a rare combination to have the two, and I thought she had a decent enough acting ability to really pull this episode off. She had a cry scene at the end where she's looking up at the stars and says, "I'll always miss you, Kirk," or something to that effect. I thought that was also a good close up for her and a nice emotional moment. She's crying on cue. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed her performance, actually more so than the other ones. I'll tell you what did bother me though is, and I'm surprised they got away with this at that time, Walter, because it hit an emotional button for me, and that is when the thrall guy Lars, the blonde thrall guy, went into Uhura's.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, when he went into Uhura's cell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they made this whole rape implication type thing happening. And I was like, why? How are they getting away with this in 1960?
Yes.
You know what I mean? I felt emotionally attached to that moment where I felt like she was being violated and,
Yes.
right here in front of me. And I didn't like to see that, even though they cut away and they, after the cut and the commercial break, we see that, she was able to fight the guy off or whatnot. But
yeah,
I
was
the
shocked
impression
by
they
it.
were giving us was
I was like I thought I was misreading this thing. I was like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
No, they can't be saying that. Like, I honestly thought that I was misreading what they were intending to show us. But no, that's really what they were showing. I was really surprised by that.
We had no idea. I mean, the inference certainly is that she's being assaulted. I mean, that was absolutely, and the fact that they had cut away and they were showing a non-active view of the jail, nobody is in, and then she you got to feel that she's being attacked, and then there's no explanation. And the guy walks out, and she's all fully clothed. The other thing that bothered me, and this is really tiny, this is really insignificant, but it bothered me, so I'm going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Near the end, we were all going to fight our captors. Each of us was going to fight. It was preposterous that I was going to fight that little lady, but okay. But that they had to find a black guy for Nichelle to fight. I mean, he was going to fight Nichelle. And I just didn't understand why they needed to do that. I mean, they were matching her up. And I didn't understand in terms of the story, in terms of the times. It didn't have to be a black guy because she's black, And then, of course, Kirk takes his place and fights the guy himself. But I guess it was a sign of the times. We were very, very sensitive to how people were portrayed, and particularly minority people. And I felt compelled to have her fight somebody who was also a minority person. I just didn't feel it was necessary.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too. That was like, I was like, why is this being inserted here? And there's several things I had issues with that. Well, let me commend one thing. I commend Uhura, or Nichelle Nichols, for refusing to fight that guy, right? So she was making a stance, and that stance of not fighting him seemed like she was almost addressing the racial component of, this is another black guy, why would I fight this guy? I felt like her resistance to that moment also included the racial tone of, why are you trying to pit me up against this black man? So I commended her for refusing to do that. But in alignment with what you're saying, Walter, what was bothersome to me was it wasn't necessary for him to be a black man. Having him in custody in that kind of way, and which would have eventually led to the whipping scene that we ended up seeing Kirk undergo when he was being whipped by that guy. That implies that they were going to reserve that whipping for him, and Kirk stepped in for that. And so to me, that was like an even more layered offensive thing. Like, now it's going to be a whipping of this black guy. Is that what you were suggesting should have taken place had Kirk not intervened? Mm-hmm. So that actually bothered me as well. So I just didn't understand the necessity of that. And the last point I'll make on that particular moment, which I know is small on screen, but it does have meaning, is when they freed the thralls at the end of the episode, they didn't return him, that character, back to say, you are, to basically allow him to be one of the freed thralls who's in captivity. So they didn't even give him the luxury of having that moment where he gets to accept his own freedom. I felt like you brought him in out of nowhere. We don't see the guy. He's not one of the caretakers. And then you don't bring him back as part of the freed group of people. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's a good point. Another person that kind of got brought in somewhat randomly towards the end was when Kirk was going to fight three people. And we've had this rotating group of people, right? We had the four people. We had the tall guy, we had the two ladies, we had Blonde Elvis. And then when he came back, suddenly they had a dude, the tall guy, they had Blonde Elvis, and rather than having one of the ladies, they introduced a new character, the Andorian guy. Maybe it's an availability thing. Maybe the other guy wasn't available, but it certainly wasn't one of the women. So this was a deliberate decision to say, no, we can't have him go against two guys and one of the women. It has to be two guys, and then we'll just create some Andorian guys. That was just another interesting thing, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I just know that was something that stood out to me of like, hey, they just dropped some new guy out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I'm like, where are these new guys coming from? Like, where are they? Are they in the other side of the planet? Like, where are the other thralls?
They probably have a whole ton of them, but they only had a budget for 5, I guess. Well, let's take a quick break. Things are going to get even spicier, everybody. Can't wait. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton and Walter Koenig.
Hello.
So far, I'm like 0 for 9 on jokes with Walter. Everything I say, he just stares at me like, was that even a joke? But here are the, there it is again. Here are the trivioids of the episode. Lieutenant Uhura experiences the craziest landing pad she's ever seen. Ensign Haynes finds an ionization trail. Spock is not chasing some wild aquatic fowl. Thralls call food nourishment because that's what it is. Kirk thinks Shauna is a very beautiful woman. Klug and Kirk get a resting interval of 15 trisecs. The newcomers have been purchased for 2,000 quatlus. Captain Kirk says you can call kissing someone helping them. And Spock leads the Enterprise on a hunch. You know, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with Kirk and that poor lady. Like, he's like kind of trying to help her in a way, and then he like starts making out with her. I'm like, this guy's kind of taking advantage of the situation. This poor lady is a slave. She's ignorant of what's going on in the universe around her. She knows only like 4 things. It's like training, fighting, eating, and sleeping. And here he is like, oh, let's, smooch it up. And yeah, this is kind of me helping you. And then he's saving her. And the whole thing just kind of felt a little bit like, we get it. Kirk is the alpha male. Kirk's the guy that gets the ladies. We get it. It felt a little... Now, again, I'm speaking out of turn because I wasn't alive in the 60s, so I don't know if that was just kind of how everything was. But watching it through the lens of 2025, it felt a little much. It felt a little heavy-handed. But the lady played it off well. She just played it innocently and ignorantly and just open-minded and just saying, well, tell me more. But it just seemed there were a lot of lines that made me roll my eyes with that guy.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, this episode's written by Margaret Armin, and
that's a very good point.
So she has her own lens that she's going to put on it, as a woman screenwriter at the time. So
that's a very good point. Yeah.
I imagine some of it is from her eyes, as well. I mean, a lot of it. So obviously, Shatner's going to put his own performative spin on things, but she wrote the script. So she wanted the damsel in distress episode. She wanted the Prince Charming coming to save her type of episode. This wasn't really written from a male chauvinist point of view per se, so I
felt
can't
like
really
it.
put it. It felt like it because of the outfits and some of the
but
themes.
that's still an excellent point you make. Yeah, that's true. That if she felt it was reasonable, then maybe it's just suffering from looking at it through the lens of 60 years later.
Right. But I want to kind of go back to what Walter was saying about. What was this episode about? What did you take away from this episode? Is like, what is this about? You mentioned the ratings and just the gratuitous sexual aspect of it. But do you think that's all the story was, Walter, or do you think there was something like there was actually a message to walk away with?
I'm really sorry you asked me because as I said before, I do have a problem understanding dialogue, hearing it, and I missed a great deal of the dialogue when it was about something other than get me out of here, So I have to leave it up to you guys to explain what the story was about, really.
Well, I think it's a very good question that Sirach poses, because to be perfectly frank, Walter, I heard all the dialogue and I'm not sure. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you are. So I defer to you, Sirach. What was the message other than slavery is bad? I mean, because it felt like we're putting these Federation people on this planet, and we're kind of just, lecturing. We're the good guys. You guys are dumb and you do bad things, and we're going to show you the error of your ways, and we're going to enlighten you and save the day, and you're going to be like, wow, they were amazing. But that's every episode. So what was the deeper message?
Yeah, and that's where I struggle as well, because I feel
Okay.
like this episode was trying to say something, but it failed to me at saying whatever it was trying to say. Um, One aspect of Star Trek is technology and the science aspect. They completely remove science from us by magically making them disappear like a genie wished it into existence. No scientific reason behind it. There wasn't any science. It's just you guys got wished away off of the transporter pad into some other dimension, world, planet, whatever. No science based behind that. So okay, then you go into the motives of the people that whimsically whisked you away, and you think, okay, they're claiming to be in higher intelligence. They've evolved past the point of needing a body, so that they're only a brain, essentially. Which is, I don't see how you could evolve that point where you don't need limbs to feed yourself and become an autonomous thing. But okay. Um, Obviously they were taking people against their will, slavery, captivity, that dynamic of a storyline, but I didn't see that being enough to carry this episode. What really kind of puzzled me was the gambling aspect of it. The whole betting on this, I bet on that. It felt like how all the gambling sites are now, where they're like, how many yards will such and such rush for, and how many touchdowns will he throw, and how many interceptions, and the gambling websites that are out
Right.
there. And
Well, see, that was my qualm with it, was with only three guys, wouldn't gambling get boring if there's only three people? You need more people. Otherwise, how are you going to keep gambling with the same two other people? That's kind of, but then the other thing was that it was a very similar theme. Not, I'm missing the depth. I missed it, and people in the live chat or in the comments or in the free for all can explain what we missed. But the point was, again, like all the other episodes, but also the theme of how they escape. How many times have we seen a super being or an omniscient being or a magical robot, and Kirk outsmarts them basically, and that's how they escape? It's by Kirk out maneuvering mentally the mental giants or something like that. So anyway, it was similar. It's not a bad thing, but it's certainly one we've seen before. But Walter, you looked like you were going to jump in on answer the phone. He answers the door. Wait, listen.
Yeah, no,
let's listen in.
Open again. It's doing it on its own. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for letting me know. I'm in the middle of a Zoom call, so
I couldn't figure it out either.
Thank you for letting me know.
But look, I think that this was a bunch of things that they threw together. Nothing was solid. And what's interesting to me is that when you talk about just basically bringing on a hot actress to boost ratings, we've heard that. I've heard that before in Star Trek, and I've heard people credit, for example, Seven of Nine's character being.
It's not just original series, right?
Right. People have said that about Seven of Nine, who was also dressed in all silver. So I think they have a thing where they're like, hey, if we want the ratings to go up, let's bring in an irresistibly gorgeous person and put them in scantily clad outfit, and the ratings will go up. It's not rocket science in that aspect of it. But I just felt like it felt like a little Count Dracula ish with the way Joe Ruskin was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you not feel a little Count Dracula?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Count Dracula wasn't the nice guy.
No, he wasn't.
It gives some support to my idea that he's a bad guy.
Well, Count Dracula was a lover.
The other thing is, and I've been interrupted here by a couple of phone calls. The brains, isn't that a futuristic concept of how we continue to evolve until we don't even have human form? And if there are humans or there are people who look like, they are under the direction of these entities that are simply brains, and that's all there are. So they're making a comment, a science fiction comment about where the development of human life will go. Isn't that part of what they're doing there?
Yeah. Evolution. Yeah, where we'll evolve to.
And that would have probably been a better idea, to be honest with you, Walter. What you just said reminds me of an avatar in a video game of some sort, right? If the brains were using these avatar bodies of the thralls, and the thralls weren't actually captured people, but they were a projection of the brains, basically brain power in a vessel, then that would have kind of hinted at a dystopian future where it seems like we are actually trying to go into where we are uploaded into a computer system and we live in a virtual reality as opposed to an actual one. So I can see that being something that could be extracted from this episode as a possible narrative, but they didn't really make it like that.
I've got to run again. I'll be right back. My garage door has a mind of its own. I think it's from the future. It keeps opening up. I'll be right back.
I think Walter was really just looking for an excuse to not answer that question, because that was pretty complicated, man. I was like, man, I could barely keep up with that one. Like you're going full like transhumanism on him.
Well, it could have been. It could have been. Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of that, right? Because you have these brains essentially controlling this, this world that they've constructed. So I can see that. But they didn't make it that. The gambling aspect of it made it even. It actually cheapened it for me. I didn't need them to be betting some like what is that money good for in this particular place? Like,
and if there's only 3 of them,
yeah.
And what are the real stakes? If they have no need for money. There's literally only 3 of them. They can do whatever they want. What do they need money for? It's for the competition of it. Okay, but again, it's just 3 of them. Like, you're going to keep competing with the same 2 other people over and over again. Like, I mean, I want to use human nature to this, but obviously it's not human nature, so I can't really apply it. But yeah, I just kind of found that to be like, I can't imagine that really happening, making the same bets and wagers and competitions with the same 3 entities over and over and over again, because you won't care. You'll be like, I don't care. We've been doing this for a million years. Anyway. I want to talk about a couple things before we go that made me laugh. Like when Scotty said they vanished in the transport, and Spock says, I assume in a different way than normal, because of course that's funny because they're supposed to vanish. So that was actually really good. Oh yeah, that was really gross. Yeah, when Lars said, I've been selected for you, I put in my notes, ew. That whole thing was just a mess. So Kirk says, pretty country to the lady when they're walking around, pretty country. Very much like my home planet Earth. And I just felt like, the way he was delivering it was like, you might as well just be in a singles bar with this guy. Like if he's fighting for life and death, they're running, and everything's like hey, so
hey, do you come here often?
Hey, you should see my planet. I can take you there if you want. Like, doesn't matter what the situation is. It seems like he's always trying to like hook it up.
He's scoring. He's going to score.
And of course, when he kisses her and she says, "And this is also helping," he goes, "Well, you could call it that." I was like, "All right, get a hold of yourself, bro." But it did make me laugh. And the other one that made me laugh was when they're escaping and we see that Chekhov had his yellow lady tied up. And he says, I guess the romance is over, or this kills the romance, or something like that. That was pretty funny. That was you, Walter.
No, actually, Walter's, my favorite 2 lines he had was when he says, "You have been selected for me." And then the follow-up to that was, "Pleased to know you, miss."
Ouch.
Those were the best lines I thought of. He was, because you can see he's like, why do I get stuck? Why can't they have 3 hot chicks over here? I kind of get stuck with this girl, and she's on me, and I'm not that
jaundice.
excited.
Hey, but it is time for the home run of today's episode, everybody. The 7th rule home run of the episode. Sirach, who gets the home run of today's episode?
I'm giving the home run to Angelique. Is that the actress's baked potato?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought Angelique was the star of this show. She was the thing that she was the star of this episode. So I thought her performance was not fantastic, but it was decent enough and believable. And I've seen very bad actresses that come in playing the beautiful damsel in distress, and I thought she actually delivered that with an actual performance, and it wasn't just "I'm pretty, look at me." So I'm glad to say that I think she got the home run.
What about you, Walter? Who got the home run of today's episode?
Well, I sort of feel the way Sirach does. I would give it to Angelique by default. So it's not an all-embracing comment, but it's the best I can do.
We are going to make it a triumvirate, a triad, a Triskellion. I agree. Yeah, and I will make it a threesome. I agree. It's Angelique because, like I mentioned before, first of all, her performance was good. It worked. It was fine. And it wasn't under the best of circumstances. She's got to play the damsel in distress. Every single time Kirk does a pickup line with her, or when he can finally save her, and she's like, "Can I come with you?" And he's like, you should probably stay here. That would be fine. But she did it all with a big green wig on. She did it all in aluminum foil. Couldn't have been comfortable. Couldn't have been great. And she still did it, and she did great. She did fine. So she gets the home run of the episode for me as well. That's it. Back to back to back home runs for her. All right, everybody, stick around. We've got the free-for-all up next, or as Walter calls it, his favorite part. We'll be right back on the 7th rule. I finally got him to laugh. It only took 50 minutes. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th rule with Sirach Lofton and Walter Koenig. This is the free-for-all with Melissa Longo.
Hiya.
And Allison Leach Hyde wearing her Shakar Salat's shirt. Faith Howell is the dark lady. This is going to be fun. Cool background. TJ Jackson Bay has 4 baked potatoes behind him. No idea why. Chuck A has 5 captains on his shirt. Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear, and Chris Garris are out in the woods somewhere. All right. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I'm gonna say like a 7-2.
Going to Kembe. Does anybody else have any guesses as to what it is on IMDb as the overall average score that doesn't already know?
I'm going to give it like a 7.9.
6.9.
7-1.
Wow, close.
Wow.
Three of you are very close. It's a 7.0. 7.0, everybody. 7.0.
Okay.
Did we get any non-appearance mentions? I didn't hear a Sulu or anything.
Who provides that number?
Oh,
Is
that's
that
on
an
IMDb. It's the International Movie Database. So anybody can rate a score. They can give it a score from 1 to 10, and then they get the aggregate, average it out, and they do like a weighted mean. So it's not even exactly a perfect average. And then that's what they do. It's an average of all of the scores of all of the viewers.
Why they gotta be so mean?
I know. Oh, thank you. Well, I'll tell you what the actual average is. Hang on a second, because I like to check that sometimes. Because they call it a weighted mean, and the unweighted mean is actually a 7.1. So the average is actually slightly higher. Well done. Well done.
Yeah. The actual retail price, baby.
I know it. Dark Lady,
Weird.
do we have some kinds of or some sorts of?
No, we do not.
Where's your chocolate wine? All right, here we go. Nice. Melissa Longo, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you thought of this particular episode?
I thought of baked potatoes.
I told you, Walter.
Baked
What is the
potatoes.
question?
And that's what I thought of this episode. That's the first thing that popped into my head was either baked potatoes or Jiffy Pops. Jiffy Pop Poppers. Yeah.
Why?
That's quite an outfit. It's a memorable episode for several reasons. I will tell you some of the things that I liked about it. I liked that most of the crew had something to do. I did miss Sulu, but I was glad to see that most of the crew was involved in telling the story and that they all had something to do. That was wonderful. I liked that Uhura wasn't afraid to stand up for herself, even when faced with these meanies. And then I really liked that they put a woman at the helm when Kirk took Chekhov with him down onto the planet. I was like, oh my gosh, this show, it's so ahead of its time in a lot of ways. But then in a lot of ways, it's very much a product of its time. So at the same time, both things are very true. There were some really funny parts, and I really enjoyed the interactions between Chekhov and his drill thrall. It was hilarious. And then there's a line, well, when Chekhov calls her Miss, he's like, oh, okay, Miss. That was really great. But another favorite line was from Spock when he was talking about not going after some wild aquatic fowl.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. And there was something that bothered me though, and that was all of the rapey stuff, and that's the yeah. I don't like that stuff. It's just so very much ahead of its time, very much a product of its time, and the rest I'll save for things left unsaid.
Couldn't agree more. Perfect. Ensign Haynes is the lady that found the ionization trail and took the helm. Also, I always thought that thrall just was kind of like they just took the derivative of enthrallment, like somebody that's kind of spellbound or entranced or something like that. But Allison Leach Hyde, be the voice of reason. What do you think of this one?
I like this episode a lot. I love that we have all of our crew who are in the episode completely engaged doing stuff. Uhura kicks ass, which is great. You know, she took on 2.
Yep.
Chekhov
Yes.
and Kirk only had 1 each. She took on 2. So go Uhura. Love that. She definitely told Lars what's what and to leave her alone. And that was great. And multiple times. So love that. I love the costumes in this episode. They feel very bonkers for gladiators and also not bonkers for gladiators. I thought it all went really well that way. And I love Galt's sparkly collar. I think it's hysterical, makes him feel like Dracula, and how he like float walks. So I do. I really love this, especially all the snarkiness between Bones and Spock and Scotty. You know, they're all like just all the little snippy things and, you know, contamination for hope. I'm like, that's great. But I also thought this episode had a wonderful message about how slavery sucks and you shouldn't do it. So that was super cool. I love having a message in an episode. And I thought Kirk was awesome in this episode the whole time, especially when he got to, you know, out-talk 3 brains. And it was a really good episode. I loved it. I never skip this one. Love this one.
Wow. This is great stuff. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde, the heart of New Mexico. All right, Faith Howell, a.k.a. everybody knows the Dark Lady. What do you think of this one?
I'm going to let the Dark Lord lead here. Chris McGee passed along his notes, and he says, it's pretty good. Not particularly groundbreaking or thought-provoking, but it may have inspired modern takes like Squid Game. Interesting take there. Standout aspect of this episode for him was Angelique Pettyjohn playing Shauna. He says, I think she was my first Star Trek crush, not just because she's beautiful, but also because of her big green wig. I hit puberty around the height of the punk rock big hair in the 80s. So what do you expect? And his memorable quote was, Quatloos. I have to concur wholeheartedly. I, you know, of course, probably first saw this episode sitting on my daddy's knee on Saturday morning, maybe Saturday afternoon, after our Garfield turned off. And I definitely was drawn to Shauna as well. She definitely still gives me, you know, Barbie vibes. She looked like all my dollies, and definitely my dollies had little outfits just like hers. So, you know, the 80s were a wild time. So.
Great stuff. I thought you were going to say all your dolls, you painted their hair green.
No, that was my sister.
Got it. Thanks very much. Faith Howell, the Dark Lady, and the Dark Lord in absentia. All right, TJ Jackson Bay is out in Missouri. He's got baked potatoes behind him. What do you think of this one?
Oh, sorry, I got distracted on the potatoes. No, I really enjoyed this episode. You know, it's one that I've seen for many years. You know, obviously since it's an original series episode, and you know there are several dynamics. Excuse me, at play. One on the planet, I always have appreciated Shauna's kind of curiosity. In her exploring that curiosity, you know, Kirk kind of gets what he needs to do, what he does to understand, you know, what's going on. You know, that's how we go on the journey as well as the audience. But, you know, the kind of looking up at the sky and question, how can you live on a speck of light? You know, kind of questions like that are, I think, worth pondering. You know, when I look into the night sky and see, you know, all the vastness of what's out there, and to have that kind of wonder of like, what really is out there? You know, is there someone living there? Is there like a ship passing by before my eyes that I can't see, or what's it really like to walk on the moon or see the rings of Saturn? That just kind of childlike wonder. I'm drawn to that, and it's a quality that I want to hold within myself and not lose. It's easy to lose that because there's so much going on in the world around us. Don't lose your wonder. In the ship, there's also some interesting things going on, and one of the things that I noticed is, so Spock is in charge, and the two senior most officers that are with him aren't really following along with his lead. They're constantly questioning, his commands until he pulls the kind of reverse psychology on them and pulls them in the corner. It's like, unless you guys want to mute me, you kind of need to get with the program here because I'm trying to do something. and I thought, Spock took it well, but I thought that was kind of a more show for Scotty and Bones to constantly question his orders on the bridge of the ship. I mean, they could have been the ones to pull him to the side and like, can you tell us what you're up to? We don't get it. We don't understand. And we're kind of concerned. Like, just let us in on what's going on. But instead, they question him, on the bridge. And Scotty's even like, I'm not going to tune the engines up until you tell me what's going on. Well, it all worked out, and they got with the program, and then they sped the ship up and all of that stuff. But I thought that was kind of a strange dynamic for a starship command structure. But again, it also kind of let us into the character of Spock and in how he's thinking and how he's logically reasoning this out. Okay, we looked all back there, and there's nothing there. It's the only thin straw that we have to go on. And yes, Spock does go on a hunch. He'll tell you he doesn't. It's completely a hunch. So interesting episode. There's a line. There were a couple of lines that I would pick up. One funny and one serious and worthy of contemplation. The funny one is, please help me once more. And the one to contemplate is delivered by Kirk, and he says, a species that enslaves other beings is hardly superior, mentally or otherwise. I can't agree more with that statement.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri. Looks like a Sci-Fi Sisters shirt. Very nice.
Yes.
All right. Chuck A, a.k.a. TNG Fanatic, is up next. Chuck A, is this your first time seeing this one? What do you think?
Oh, no, it's not the first time. Probably in the 20 times over the years. It's been a few years since I saw it, though. Yeah, I liked this episode. I thought that Shatner and Walter and Nichelle did wonderful jobs in the episode. It was really, really good. They seem to also want to put Shatner shirtless again. That's happened quite a few times. The actor that played Galt was Joseph Ruskin, and I remembered that I had seen him in Deep Space Nine in at least one show. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I'm looking at my phone now. Apparently, he was in 3 episodes of DS9. He was in Star Trek Insurrection. He was in a Star Trek Voyager episode and a Star Trek Enterprise episode. So I didn't know. Wow. I knew about the DS9 one, but I didn't know about the other. So he was definitely a repeat customer for Star Trek. I liked the scenes with Angelique Pettyjohn-Shauna with Shatner. That was really good. And as was mentioned, Walter had that good scene in his quarters with the one drill thrall. And then also was mentioned Nichelle was fighting two ladies at once in the fight scene at the end. And I did like the scene with the 3 brains, at the end. And it was, I would have bet all the Quatloos I had that that the show was going to come out good. Kirk had to fight all those characters at the same time, and it obviously was going to go good. And then I was always surprised at the end when Shauna says that the thralls surrender, because he said that he would only gain freedom if he killed all the thralls. But I remembered that, but I sort of, well, maybe that's not what happened. But again, it's been a few years since I saw it. But I really enjoyed this episode. I saw it in first run when it aired, and then I also have seen it in reruns many times. Really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Thanks very much, Chuck. I thought the same thing. I was like, wait, he never said that was part of the rules. I thought she was actually going to kill herself. I thought that was going to be the final death, which would have made it really powerful. And Joe Ruskin, he was in a lot of things. Yeah, Voyager, Insurrection, ER, Enterprise. He was in a show called That's My Bush. I don't know what that is. And Scorpion King with an exclamation point. Anyway,
wow.
That's what it says. Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear, is out in the jungle or the forest or something. What do you think of this one?
This one is a fun one. I think the first time I have fond memories of it, because the first time I saw it was on the 2022 Star Trek cruise. Denise Crosby did her interstellar improv thing with this episode, so that was the first time I had ever seen it. So it was nice to watch it again with the actual dialogue, and I enjoyed. I also love Angelique Kidder. She was very much giving me total Lady Gaga with the outfit and the hair. That is absolutely something she would wear on stage. And when I mentioned that this much to Chris McGee last night when we were chatting, he pointed out that her and Kirk definitely had quite the bad romance. So had to pass that little gem along because it made me laugh very much out loud. Pardon me for looking down. I've got my notes on the bench here next to me, and I did my usual looking up of things. And the screenwriter came up with the idea after seeing a recent re-release in theaters of Spartacus. So that's where the whole gladiator thing kind of came from. And I thought the voice of one of the providers sounded a little bit familiar. So when I looked up at IMDb, one of the voices is the same voice you hear giving the Impossible Mission Force their missions at the beginning of episodes of the original Mission Impossible TV series, which filmed in like a nearby studio. And I guess that particular actor was a fan of the show. So it's not. I haven't seen very many episodes of that, but my dad enjoyed it, so the voice was a little bit familiar to me. Because I love like fun symbols and things, Celtic knotworks, all that sort of stuff. I found what a Triskellion is. I thought you guys might enjoy this quick little history lesson. Sorry, there's a mosquito or something bothering my hat. And apparently a Triskellion is an ancient symbol that's been used in Greek, Roman, and Celtic cultures. The earliest use of it is in 3200 BC on a stone that's at the entrance to a town in Ireland. It's a symbol that is older than the pyramids and embraced by Celtic cultures that revere the number 3 as sacred. So maybe that's also probably why there were three brains.
And 3 sons.
That symbol, I think, is just really, yeah.
3 sons.
That symbol is really neat. And yeah, I very much enjoy it. And the Quatloos, that would actually make a fun. I thought of this the other day that Quatloos would make an interesting name for like a pet. I think I might have to name a cat, Quatloo. Just because it's a fun word. I enjoy that word. But I did make up a quick haiku, and I thought of after Kirk and them leave, Shauna's getting her education. She starts with a simple haiku, and this is maybe the haiku she might have written because she was thinking about Kirk when she wrote it. Kirk has taught me much. He has changed the stars for me. I will remember. And yes, I am a fan of this episode.
Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. All right, everybody in the comments below, let us know, what pet would you call Quatlu? That's a good one. Good question there. Chris Garris. What's up, Chris Garris, in the heart of Texas? He's out in Houston right now. What'd you think of this one?
So this was, what my first time to actually watch this episode.
What?
I haven't actually watched off TOS yet. I'm doing it as we're going through it now. But I really enjoyed it. The only part, and everybody we've talked about it, honestly, the only part that really bothered me was the whole Ahura scene, up there when she was, I just didn't like that one. But, again, it was the sign, it was at the time, it was the sign of the times back then, unfortunately. And I did love Walter's scene with his drill thrall. That was so funny. But no, it was really, other than that, really that one scene, it was just a good episode. I truly enjoyed it. Had a lot of action. Kirk kicked butt when he could, as much as he can. And I had forgotten, I didn't know how they were going to do it. Like, I'm glad he did not kill her, because that would have not gone over very well at the very end, I don't think. But no, it just, one thing that I could not stop seeing, if you looked at, I think it was Lars, the thrall Lars, every time I looked at him, I thought he looked like either Elvis to me or a Val Kilmer in some like Val Kilmer's younger, like in much younger when he was in that anyway, and I was like, I just could not stop seeing that. But no, it was a good TOS episode. I really have, other than that one complaint, that's really the only thing I have. The shell kick butt, like everybody said. I'm kind of curious, and we may talk about this thing that I said about all the stunts and who all did those. So I am kind of curious about that part of it. But yeah, again, overall, that's why I gave it an 8. 8.1, whatever I said, because I really enjoyed it.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
That one scene.
Yeah, except that one. Chris Garris out in Houston this time. Well, that's about it for us, except for Jake's final take. Sirach, any final thoughts on today's episode?
Yeah, a couple things. One is when Spock is going on the computer and he basically programs the computer to ask the computer, what's the next step to go to the next location. I thought it was interesting because they mentioned computer several times in this episode, and Spock says, I fed it into the computer. I'm going to wait for the answer. And that's not much like us now asking Siri or some kind of other AI, like, what's the answer to this question? Here are the parameters and what's the answer. So them basically forecasting something that we use now on a daily basis, which is this kind of question and asking of artificial intelligence. I thought that's pretty, ahead of its time. So I like to see that nod right there. Spock mentions Daniel and the Lion's Den. I thought that was cool because, again, you get some biblical references in there. You always get little nuggets of some kind of biblical references, and that was one of them. I think they were mispronouncing Quaaludes. It's Quaaludes, guys. They were trying. So it wasn't a money thing. I wasn't sure about the whole, like, you guys are too dumb, so you have to learn before we can like free you, because I felt like it wasn't that many thralls, and it felt like they needed to be liberated, and it also felt like they were being held there against their will, and it looked like they got there the same way Kirk got there, which is basically against his will and vanished from some place. So I don't see why you wouldn't release those people. It doesn't seem you would leave them with their captors, hoping that their captors have evolved based on this wager that Kirk placed. I don't see that as a logical outcome or a humane thing to do. and say, oh, you know what? I talked to the guys that have been torturing you and enslaving you. They're totally going to treat you nice and let you self-govern, but nobody's ever going to come back and check to see if that is the case. So we hope that is the case, and good luck with the rest of your life. That doesn't exactly seem like the moral thing to do. So sorry if I'm nitpicky on that. I also think it's a little bit weird to volunteer your entire crew into slavery.
Yes.
When this episode is about free will versus slavery, and now you're taking away the free will of your entire crew. Maybe they don't want to join up for this. They're like, oh, I didn't sign up for this. I don't want Kirk fighting 3 guys. I don't know what the odds are here. This doesn't sound like a logical bet for me. I'm not signing up. So you're removing everybody else's free will so that you can achieve free will. It's kind of a weird thing to me, question-wise. I think the Uhura scene, which I felt very uncomfortable with too, is the assault that they essentially were showing us without showing us, or suggesting it. I think that would have been better served if it went to Chekhov's character. I thought if Chekhov was in the room and you heard the fighting and the struggling and you didn't see anything, that would have played better for me. I would have been okay with that. Less than the woman picking on the woman. Make it something else. Switch it up a little bit. And then I'll say Shauna did the most mad dogging on Uhura in that final scene when they were sitting on the bench together. Uhura tries to get up, I think, to help Kirk or something to that effect, and she looks at her like, "That's my man," and it was just it was the biggest mad dog I think I've ever seen, and I loved it. So I thought that was actually her best act at that moment. She cut some laser eyes at Uhura. So yeah, that's about it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but some of the messages that they were trying to leave, like where you walk away with some kind of moral victory or some kind of message, I don't think it really had one definitive one that you could say, oh yeah, that was a story about this or that. It seemed a little scattered and not really flushed out all the way. But did I enjoy it? Yes, and I thought Angelique was beautiful to watch and also gave a good performance. So, yeah, I liked it.
Walter, any final thoughts on today's episode before we go?
I just turned 89, so I'm an old person. So my comments are shaded by my age and my change. Oh, screw it. Okay. What to say was the pandering to the sexual element in the story was a little obvious for me. It was a little over the top. So much, as my Jewish family would say, so much kissing. I heard of all that. He didn't need it. And the bare chest and the skimpy costume. Okay, it's a sign of the times, I guess. It's what we were dealing with, and we got to stay on the air. We got to appeal to everybody. So it didn't revolt me or disgust me or turn me off. I just felt it was a little obvious. That's it.
Agreed. All right. Thank you very much, Walter. And thank you to Chris, Carrie, Chuck, TJ, Faith, Allison, Melissa, for myself, Walter, Sirach, Melissa Longo, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us, everybody. If you're a patron, stick around and check out Things Left Unsaid. Turns out my elementary school was called Ruskin Elementary. If anybody can guess what our mascot was, you'll get 40 years of free 7th Rule membership. All right, everybody, we'll see you on the other side. Put your guesses in the comments below. And until then, Always remember the seventh rule.